This is an 8x10 camera, and this video is sponsored by Squarespace. In the last week, I've shot this much 8x10 film, which isn't too bad going, considering the year and a half before that, I only managed to expose 2 sheets. I basically figured out it's time this camera gets back into action. I can't have it sitting around just gathering dust, locked away in a camera bag. I gotta use it myself, or if that's not gonna happen, I've got to pass it on to someone else who's going to treat it right. So I put out a call on Instagram, follow me, for people to shoot on 8x10. And this is the first little batch of friends and new friends I've photographed. If you've never seen a large format camera before, this is what one looks like. So this is an 8x10 camera, slightly bigger than the normal large format camera. And to be honest, I think it's the most simple camera I've ever used. It just folds out like this and basically makes a light tight box. All this camera is some wood, some material to keep it light tight, and a piece of glass. And then you can stick a lens on the front and you can take photos. In my opinion, this is way more simple than a digital camera. I don't know how a digital camera actually functions, but this, I'm very in control. I know exactly how everything works, and I like that. So, you got a lens on the front. This is a 300mm, which is the equivalent of like a 50mm in normal terms. And yeah, light comes through here, it's trapped in this dark area, and hits this piece of glass on the back, which allows you to compose your image, but you need to have a cloth over it so you can actually see what you're doing. You focus down here on this little wheel, and you can also perform camera movements to change your perspective and your focus. It's very cool, very clever, technical camera, and it takes very detailed pictures. I think a lot of the time you see a camera like this and you expect it to take old, retro-looking photos, but that's definitely not the case. So I just got to Brighton, and today I'm doing either 3 or 4 different 8x10 portrait shoots. A couple of couples and some individuals. Should be fun. So first of all, I photographed Flossie, and immediately I'm reminded of why I love shooting portraits on large format. The ability to tilt focus is just awesome, and a consistent theme you're probably going to see throughout the photos, having the subject's face and their hands or their feet in focus. All of this in one image just makes for something, I don't know, I just really like it. So as a loose parameter for all of these photos, I allocated everyone 1 sheet of colour and 1 sheet of black and white. I was going to take 2 photos per group. The colour film was a mix of Portra 400 NC and 160 NC, which expired in 2007, and the black and white is all HP5. Next up was Sam and Zoe, and getting couples to pose whilst you're looking through something that's upside down and back to front to compose can be a bit tricky, especially if you haven't been using this camera recently. But I guess I'm mainly trying to take these photos which are real and natural, and I don't want people to be in a position where they don't feel comfortable. So it's kind of getting them to sit how they feel they would or would like to, and then just adding a little bit of guidance. I then shot Naomi and Saffron, and by this time the sun had left us, which I was pretty worried about, but thankfully they had a little continuous light I was able to bounce against the wall and the ceiling. And to be honest, I was worried this would kind of stand out as something very distinctly different from all the other photos, but somehow managed to get it looking fairly natural. And then on another day, I was out in London taking pictures. First of all, we had Danny, and I think the kind of isolation in this photo and the tilt of the focus is kind of like everything I was aiming to do with these photos so far. I really love that kind of embrace of the feet, but also that tilt of the focus just to kind of perfectly isolate her against the backdrop. It's the perfect depth of field. And then I went over to Finn's house and took a fairly similar photo, and something which I've noticed as a theme of how I compose on 8x10. I'm often taking these very direct photos. The person is kind of presenting themselves as they are, and they're looking towards the camera. And I guess this makes sense because this camera is anything but candid. It's slow, it's huge and obvious. You can't act like the person doesn't know their photo's being taken. So it kind of makes sense to me that that's the composition and the direction I normally lead towards. But I did notice that this is the only photo where my subject isn't addressing the camera. I think it's probably something I just want to explore more with the next batch of photos, because if I was using a smaller camera, say an RZ67, which I often shoot with, I would have tried way more things. Whether that's because I had more frames or because you can hold the camera in different positions and you can think faster, I don't know, but yeah, that's something I want to address. And then on the other photo of Finn, this is another example of like why I like this depth so much. The just like subtle tilt of the lens to get his vest and necklace in focus as well as his face. It's just like perfect. I'm not saying it's a perfect image, but that element of focus is something I really, really like. And then I went over to Finn and Millie's and got an epic family portrait with the dog, which is probably not the most simple thing to try and do on 8x10, but thankfully everyone kind of cooperated, so it wasn't too bad. And this scene was probably a bit too backlit, but we live and we learn. Something I've instantly kind of recognised about photographing people only inside of their houses so far is space and light can be an issue with this camera. I do have a wider lens which has been working fairly well, but it's not super bright in anyone's house. So pretty much everything has been shot at like the most open lens, which is fine. I guess with this camera you kind of want to lean into shallow depth of field sometimes. But yeah, it's definitely like provided some limitations. I'd love to carry around lighting with me as well, and explore into that, but as it is, carrying this camera around is already like a lot. The other thing I'll say is that it's been pretty hard to film any behind the scenes footage. Thankful I've got this GoPro because it is kind of mindless, but it takes a lot of my brain to use this camera well. So that's something I'm going to try and improve on for next time, but at the same time I don't want it to be like a hindrance to the photos. I thought it'd be interesting to kind of explain why I'm doing this. It's mainly because I just haven't been using this camera, and it feels like a massive waste. I feel like either I should be using it, using the film I've got wasting away in my cupboard, or someone else should be shooting it and enjoying it. The colour film for this camera is incredibly expensive, like outrageously expensive. It comes out around like £24 per sheet of portrait, and that's just not feasible anymore. I was lucky to buy a lot of film secondhand, expired a few years ago for a really good price, and I've had that kind of sitting around waiting for the right project, and I don't have a project right now, you know, because there's such a kind of high entry price point and also effort to carry this camera around. It means I only reserve it for very particular and special moments, and that just means I don't use it. So I thought it would be nice to start a new project, one without many parameters. The only ones being I'm photographing people I met on the internet in their houses, and that's it. And finally, I'd like to thank Squarespace again for sponsoring this video. Squarespace is an amazing all-in-one solution to building websites and much more. If you're looking to purchase a new domain, maybe start an online store, a blog, a website of any kind, whether it's through your business or your portfolio, Squarespace has you covered for all this and much, much more. There's an amazing variety of different themes to get you started, and you definitely don't need any prior web building experience to build a very professional looking website. There's an amazing variety of different features, whether it's organising your schedule and planning things, and it also is amazing 24/7 customer support if you do come into any trouble. Having a website in this day and age is pretty essential. I'm guessing if you're watching this, you take photos or are creative of some kind, and you need a place to call your own on the internet to have your work displayed so people can find it and hopefully like it and maybe book you for a job. So, what are you waiting for? Go and get yourself a lovely new Squarespace website today. You can sign up using my link in the description to get 10% off your order, or you can just use code negativefeedback. So, thank you very much for watching. See you next time.